Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jen, how are you?
Okay,
Good.
I'd like to call the meeting to order at, I don't have my clock with me. 4:01. Call to order. Good evening. Mrs. Weber, will you do a roll call to establish quorum?
Member Morgan?
Here.
Member Kelly?
Here.
Member Malczewski?
Here.
Clerk Hills?
Here.
President Perry?
Here. Adoption of the agenda. Thank you. Dr. Glass, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are not.
Oh, I
Thank
want to
you.
make a motion on the agenda.
May I have a motion to adopt the?
No, I'm making a motion on the agenda.
Okay, may I hear your motion?
Yes, you.
I also have a motion on the agenda.
Okay, I'll hear both.
I move that we remove item 7E from the agenda regarding Board Policy 9310. The reasoning for that is not based on the merits of the proposed bylaw revisions, but my concerns about board and community input. The first issue is that it's inappropriate for the majority board members to propose a substantial change to the bylaws, one that will lead to significant governance change for our district during a summer meeting when major stakeholders, including teachers, parents, and students, are not available to participate. The second is that this item requires thoughtful analysis, but was proposed late Monday afternoon, making it impossible to give the proposal the kind of thoughtful analysis required. And finally, those two issues more generally speak to a broader concern that we're not really following board policies, I think. We're proposing a change to the bylaws without using the regular policies for changing the bylaws. It's kind of like Congress making a decision that will have a majority vote to modify the Constitution by having a majority vote to modify the Constitution instead of requiring 2/3 of the states to ratify it. So at this point, in accordance with these board bylaws, we haven't identified a need for a new policy or revision, which is A for new policies. We haven't gathered fiscal, other data, staff and public input, related district policies. We haven't done that. We are planning to hold a public discussion tonight, but we're doing it absent steps 1 and 2. We are proposing it as an action item before we've actually followed the steps. So for these reasons, I move that we remove it from the agenda.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
I don't understand how the comment of that we're not following,
Are we going to recognize people to speak? Or
Oh, sorry.
Did you recognize?
I was not recognized.
Sorry, Board Member Morgan.
I just wanna
So
make
we're going to
sure.
discuss right now.
Right.
We're not, this would only be pulled if it was not put on the agenda correctly.
Right.
And so that's what we're discussing.
Okay.
Okay,
So I wanted to be recognized. I don't know. I
but
guess-
you want to be recognized on something else, right?
No, I want to be recognized on this motion.
Okay, okay. Board Member Morgan, could you go first and then? Board Member Hill?
So I appreciate Member Malczewski's concern that we're not following policy and protocol on creating policy. However, a statement that was made in there is that we're not following policy protocol on new policies. And when in fact what this is an existing policy that was last reviewed July 27th, 2023, which would have been under the most recent past board's guidance. And this is a policy about how we create policy, and I have gone through it line by line, and I have a couple questions for it when it does come up, but at the end of the day, it's not new policy that we're creating, and I do agree that there should be a process for that, but it's just making some updates to a current policy, and even within the policy, it states that upon, one of the reasons why you might want to address a policy is when you have a new superintendent or a new board. And I know we've been on the board for 7 or 8 months now, and we have a new superintendent, and in this process of our current policy, it states that that would be a good time to evaluate the policies, and there are different steps to do this, and that is part of the discussion. But when you look at the policy as it exists, bringing this forward today to review and either discuss and act upon or discuss and move forward, that is within the current bylaws of which the past board approved on July 27th. Thank you.
I'd like to be recognized.
Okay, Clerk Hills?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple comments. One is that under Education Code, Section 35010. The board makes the rules for its governance. Bylaw 9310 is a rule for governance of the board's business. The board does not have the power by passing a bylaw or by passing a bylaw under Section 35010 to restrict the authority of a later board to change whatever it is an earlier board has done. In other words, since you brought up the federal constitutional context, the maxim of all legislative law at the federal, state, and local level is that one legislative body cannot bind another legislative body, a later legislative body. Any act of a legislative body can be undone, reversed, changed, modified, repealed by a subsequent legislative body. You said that this would be like Congress passing a law to change a provision of the Constitution. That is a deeply flawed conception of the situation. The fact is that Congress cannot pass a law that restricts a future Congress's ability to pass a different law and to change a law. That said, the fact is that the very concern you have about the board having the ability to make amendments to board policies without going through the stepwise fashion set forth. One of the things that the board did in this bylaw is it created an annual review process for revisions to the bylaws. And in that annual review process, which is both required by state law and by the bylaw, there is a 3-step or 2-step, depending on how you count it, process for the development of proposals to amend the bylaws and for enactment. That very process allows the board to suspend that process. That very process, as written in the existing rule, says that if it chooses not to have a second reading, it can just treat the first reading as the enactment of the bylaw. So the idea that some new power is being given to the board or some power is being taken away from the board is wrong. What this does is this actually gives the public an ordered scheme of process that the existing doesn't. And let me give you an example. The existing rule that you think that we're going to cause to be less democratic or less transparent with the public has an interesting provision in it. It says, by majority vote, the board may suspend enforcement of a board policy or board bylaw on a one-time basis when enforcement of the policy is not mandated by law. Now, all bylaws have to be in compliance with federal law and state law. But the bylaws are in fact in the nature of having the force and effect of law. The bylaws are in the nature of an ordinance in the context of municipal government. It states in the bylaw as it exists right now that the bylaws are binding on the board and on the district as long as they're compatible with federal and state law. But suddenly we have this provision in here that they put in saying, by a majority vote, the board may suspend enforcement of a board policy or board bylaw. Now, you don't seem to be too concerned about that, but that is, I think that's unconstitutional. I think it's overly broad and vague and violates due process. But the point is, one of the things that these amendments are gonna is to fix that, because that is an evil right there. Because what that says is that they can retroactively change the
Point
application.
of order, we're not supposed to be discussing the
sorry,
bylaw. We're supposed to be talking about whether it makes sense to address removing it from this meeting until we've done our due diligence in stating what the problem is.
You didn't limit-
bringing
you
it to the
didn't limit your
people.
motion.
Well, you're going, I did say that in
You
a
did not
motion.
limit your motion. You raised substance about the contents of the proposed bylaw, and that's what I'm responding to. So I'll conclude my remarks just by saying that I don't believe there's any merit to the motion. This is a board, we're not changing any board policy as it relates to the a specific program or policy or education function. What we're doing is we're improving the process for making bylaws when we are going to be proposing bylaws on policies, programs, and other issues. The existing one is very vague and it has a very deeply offending provision in it. And I've got to say that of the three versions that we have before us, although I have a certain.
Mr. Hills, we're not getting into the versions right now. We're just discussing
Okay.
whether we can put this on the agenda or not.
I'm just responding to the content of the motion.
So I just want to respond to that. I'm not going to go into all of the, I'm not a lawyer. You have the great legal mind, Howard. I'm just an historian. But the bottom line is it's the summer. We have not identified a problem. Part 1 of the list of how we do this specifically says that if you're going to make a new policy or do a revision, you should provide the public with the information about why you're doing it. Then you get data and public input and related district policies. In essence, there is a revision to an existing policy. I interpret it very different than Mr. Hills, but that's beside the point. And we've put it on an agenda as an action item with no information for the public about why there's a need for the revision, why it's going to an action item, what that action item would even be. We haven't collected public input, and it's not appropriate as a motion, particularly in the summer when people can't even engage with it. So I stand by my motion.
Member
Can I
Perry?
make one more comment, please?
Let's go ahead and vote. I'd like to call for the vote. How many agree that this should be taken off the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
How many disagree?
Aye.
Aye. So this will stay on the agenda. We do not have to take an action on it, but it will stay on the agenda as a discussion and possibly an action. Okay. Yes.
So we just need to adopt the agenda now, as presented. Now you can adopt the agenda as presented, if that's what you want to move.
Okay.
Aye.
I'd like to move to adopt the agenda as presented.
I had a motion on the agenda.
Okay, what is your motion?
Well, I don't know. It's not something that I have really strong feelings about, but I just thought since tonight's the night when the new student reps are going to be introduced and the superintendent's going to make a report, I was just wondering if it wouldn't be a good idea to move the student rep and the superintendent's report up to the, let me see. We've now got them, yeah, I was just thinking that it might be nice to move the introduction of the student reps up to maybe being part of the superintendent's report or something.
Would it be, are you seeking to have the superintendent report go prior as item A under reports for bargaining?
I guess what I was
for
thinking
bargaining
was
units?
to put the superintendent's report and the introduction of the students at the top of the report section, in other words, as item A in that, and then move the, what is now A, B, C, D into corresponding next alphabetical order.
They are student board members, they're board members, so that's why they were put as part of the board member reports.
Yeah, I just know that the student reps used to sometimes comment on sitting through everything and not getting, not being early enough in the agenda. So that was my motivation, but again, I don't have strong feelings about it. I would just wanted to raise it and see if anybody else agreed. If nobody else agrees, that's fine with me.
I think it was seconded down here.
I seconded it.
Okay, so any more discussion?
So for clarity, is the motion to move item 6C to 6A? After public comment, but before the reports, being the superintendent with the first report?
If I
Dr.
might,
Glass?
Clarify, I think, Clerk Hills, your motion is to move item 7A to 6A and move item 6C to item 6B. Or that would affect moving the introduction of the student board members to the first report and the superintendent's report to the second thing, and then the others remain.
Yeah.
Is that what you wish to?
That's what I had in mind. But if that doesn't seem like a good idea, it's,
Makes, fine, by me. And no objection. Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
So you got a motion and a second, and I
Okay.
think we've clarified.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, we will make that change. Okay. Now, is there any public comment on closed session items? Nope, I don't think there are. Okay. Can we adjourn to closed session to discuss the following items? Items, conference with legal counsel, Doe Jane versus Laguna Beach USD, anticipated litigation government code 54956.9, conference with labor negotiators, government code 54957.6. May I have an motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss? That was marked out. Oh,
It's on the agenda, but it won't be discussed tonight. So you can read it if you want, but there's nothing in that section tonight.
So moved.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Adjourned from closed session at 4:17.